Well, I like to always start by taking just a few moments. Have you ever tried to clear your mind and see how busy it gets? I like to take just a moment before I say anything and just do my best to get in a place of quietness and peace. So if we could take just a moment to do that. You know, I think everyone is looking for the right way. I started looking for the right way in 1969 when I first had an experience that really caught me up into the heavens. Now, I don't mean that literally, but I was so filled with love. At the time, of course, I had no understanding, but I wept for about 3 days. And then every time I would get around others who were at that time what we called seeking God, I just began to weep and not understand why. And I so began a quest for truth that my whole life was caught up in trying to find, at first, the right church. And then really trying to find, you know, what is the truth? And, you know, what I've discovered in later years is that nobody can really give you the truth or make you experience the truth. We all have to find that for ourselves. And your truth may not be my truth, and my truth may not be your truth. And that's why Mike talked last night a little bit about absolute truth. Absolute truth cannot be taught. It can be experienced, but it can't be taught. I got so upset years ago with absolute truth, not that I didn't believe it, but that it was always shoved down my throat. You can't say that. It's like like Mike said last night, there is no self. There is no me. But here I am. I think I shared this once before, but my experience was like you read about the wise men in the East who sought after the Christ. They saw the star and they recognized it was the star of the Christ that was to be born. And so they went out following the star. But they made a huge mistake. They started following the mind. And they figured if anybody would know where the Christ was, it would be in Jerusalem. So they went into Jerusalem, and you know what trouble that caused. The very people that Jesus supposedly was coming to save wanted nothing to do with that message. But as soon as they left Jerusalem, the star reappeared, and they followed the star to his birth. I can so relate that to my experience, because as I said, I was so caught up in the presence and the essence of love. And I began to follow that. And Nothing in the world is like living and following the essence of love that's in your heart. But I did the same thing the wise men did. I went to Jerusalem because that's what I was taught to do. I went to church. And now as I think back, when I went to church, I lost that living star. I lost the essence of love that was welling up within me. And I began to try to live as I was taught. And I was lost for years. Almost all of us that don't experience the living, vibrating magnificence of His essence within us is because of the prison of our mind. We've all tried to live as we've been taught. And it just locks you in a prison. I've done a lot of research in recent years about religion. And it's such a trap. And once you get in that trap, without a divine revelation, you cannot get out. You've heard the expression, I was born a Baptist and I'll die a Baptist. And that's what happens to most people. One of the main things that brought me out of the religious mindset, and Mike kind of mentioned it last night, he said, I can't quote him, but he said something like, your thoughts. Your thoughts is what makes that false image of yourself. And I was imprisoned by my thoughts for years, mainly due to my religious teachings. But then one day I heard Wayne Dyer say, if you change your thoughts, you'll change your life. And that's a very difficult thing to do when you've been trained all of your life to think a certain way. And you've been trained not to deviate from what you have been taught. Yet the only way you'll really discover truth is to discover, first of all, the truth of your being. And I don't mean intellectually, but if you never have a revelation of your true being, you can't get out of the prison of your mind. That's right. You first of all have to know the truth of your being. You are the most wonderful, beautiful essence of love that can be found on this earth. And when you discover that, it sets you free from the prison of the mind, from the prison of your thoughts that hold you in captivity. We all know that Jesus, hopefully we all know this, that Jesus was the example of who we all are. He was what Bill Britton used to call, he was the pattern son. And every one of us, at the core of our being, is exactly the same as he was. And I've experienced some of this. We all know, and you know, whether Jesus was literal or not really makes no difference. There's so much argument today about, whether he literally lived or whether he didn't. You know what? That makes no difference at all to me. But it's the truth. You have to find the truth that's written in the words and become the truth of the words. You can do anything, anything. Like I say, I've experienced some of this, not a lot, but you can do anything that Jesus did. You really can. But your beliefs will stop you. Your thoughts will stop you. How do you change your thoughts? You can't. Everything is a divine journey. You have to be led. Some call it the Spirit, some call it God. It doesn't matter. You have to be led by your inner knowing. You know the truth. You know the truth. But your mind won't let you believe the truth. Your inner, what I did a message years ago called the Infallible Guidance System. And Carol and I have been living this way for years. There is literally an inner guidance system. And what it is, it's your true self. The knower lives within you. Yet there's so much information, especially if you get into trying to find truth on the internet. There is so much information out there. It'll drive you crazy if you try to, and I did that for years. I'd hear it and I'd try it. I'd hear it. When I first got into the Word and Faith, they said, all you have to do is speak right. I went around for months saying, I'm healed, I'm healed, I'm healed, I'm this, I'm that. Now, positive confession is wonderful. I'd rather speak positively than negatively. But you can say you're healed until your tongue falls out. And it won't necessarily do you any good. Now, positive confession has brought me out of the pit that I was in. But I discovered the truth of positive confession is not just saying the right thing. There's an inner guidance system. There's a knowing. The true essence of your being will guide you into all truth. It's what the scriptures say. The Holy Spirit will guide you into all the truth. And you have an anointing, and that anointing abides in you and will teach you all truth. We can't believe that, and that's why we're in such a prison. But if you can just shut your mind off, I practiced, and I still do for years, of just trying to be quiet. It's one of the most difficult things you'll ever do. It's just try to be quiet. When I first tried to do it, now what I'm sharing with you is my experience. But it's how I found the truth. I used to call it hear God speak, but that wasn't it. That's what I thought it was. But I began to understand or hear things within my being that was absolutely contrary to everything I'd ever been taught. And when I tried to share that, I was shut down all the time. But somehow, I was brought to the place where I began to believe what I was understanding and hearing rather than what I was being taught. And then I began to confess what my inner guidance was telling me. See, there's a difference between confessing something that you don't really believe or confessing something that you know to be the truth.
Yes.
If you know it to be the truth and you speak it, it will create for you your experience. Most of us have believed and confessed the wrong thing all of our lives, and that has created for us the experience that we have today. Your thoughts will literally shape your life.
Yes.
A lot of people say, well, there's no real power in thoughts. Oh, really? If you think there's no power in thoughts, you think of the worst thing that ever happened to you, and you start remembering that, and that all comes back to you in your experience. The feelings, the hurt, will all come back. Now that's true in the positive sense too. If you try to get in a place where you quiet your mind, and if you can ever do that and you get to that place, you will begin to understand and you will begin to be led by the truth of your being. But with all the mind traffic and all the trying to learn the truth, for years I tried to learn the truth. And the only thing I experienced in all my years of trying to discover the right church or to discover the right truth, the only thing that I ever experienced in all of that was the absolute love of God. I've never lost that. If I had, I wouldn't be here today. Because in my eyes, I was one of the most horrible Christians that I knew. I didn't do anything right. But the love was always there. And the thing that saved me was that I always spent never less than an hour a day just in the Lord's presence. And I could not do that without experiencing that overwhelming essence of love that would well up within me. So no matter how bad I was, it was the love that kept me seeking the truth. Carol and I have been told to do the impossible many times. Yet, we don't try to make it happen. We just say, we start talking, and we usually get the same, the same intuition that we should do something. And then we just say, okay, and don't try to make it happen. When I first went into publishing my ministry writings, I felt that I had just built a website, and I really felt this, that I needed to offer my writings and my books for free on the internet. And when I first got that thought, it scared me, because I knew that they could become very popular, and I had no way to supply the finances. If all of a sudden I got 100 orders for my books. I couldn't do it, but I had that knowing that I should do it. So I did. And we never had a problem meeting the obligations of sending the books out. You cannot hear from your internal guidance system. You cannot hear something and not realize the full potential and supply of everything you need come to you. I could tell you so many stories of crazy things that Carol and I have done. And every time, every supply, everything we need, it just flows to it, and that's true today. But we never try to change things, or we never try to make things happen. We're just open. And the biggest mistake so many make, I've done it too, is when you hear somebody speak, you just reject it right away. That's such a big mistake. Most of us don't have have a very small clue, really, of the vastness of truth today. But if you reject, just because you don't believe something, you could really miss a real opportunity for spiritual growth. Now, about quieting. Over the years I've come, I love the quiet. Anybody that knows me will tell you I don't talk much. I'm a quiet person. But we used to call it coming into His presence, whatever you want to call it. There is a place to where there is total, complete peace and the wonderful essence of love. Yes. And that's what you are. That's what you are. Oh, sometimes I wish I could somehow, there was a way that we could just cause everybody to experience this love. Once people experience the love that is the unconditional love, it will guide you throughout your entire life. You never have to ask for anything. You never have to try to change anything. You may want to, but you see, you don't live life. Life lives you. That's what is meant by it's no longer I who live, but it's Christ that lives within me. You can say, there is no I, there is no me, but there is Christ. That's right. And that's who we are. People all over the world today are beginning to realize and wake up to the truth of their being. I've wanted one thing all of my life, since I was a child. I've wanted to know what at that time I called God. That's what I wanted, even as a child. And you know, all the time I spent in religion, I'm really thankful for it. Carol and I, there was a time when we absolutely loved our church. We worked in the church. We'd work all day, come home from work, eat, get dressed, and go work in the church till late at night. We absolutely loved church. Until that inner guidance within me began to stir, and I began to realize we were in a false religion. I said this years ago that Christianity is a false religion. It's not that the people are bad. It's not that the people are, the people are wonderful, but they're in a prison and they don't know it. They're not taught about their inner being. They're only taught about what they need to do to be pleasing to God. Good luck with that. You are so pleasing to God. There is nothing in us that is not pleasing. When I first heard Mike say, everything is perfect. Everything is perfect. And then you look around. But you know what? I realized everything is perfect in my life. Yet look at me. Look at my physical outward condition. You can look at that if you want to, but I don't. Because I am at such a peace. There is nothing, absolutely nothing that I need that doesn't come to me. Even a lot of the things I want come too. The concept that we have to just be this so-called spiritual. And there's so many things you shouldn't do if you really want to please God. You can't, my God, you can't smoke. You can't have a drink. The places that I was in, you couldn't go to movies. You couldn't go swimming with your wife. One church I was in, the preacher said, me and my wife are so holy, we've never seen each other naked.
Not a good idea.
One place I was in, I'd be condemned for wearing short sleeves as a man.
Yeah.
Now that's the extreme, but a lot of people, probably millions, are trapped in that religious mindset. I'll never forget, I was so trapped with that religious mindset. I was condemned for 13 years for smoking. I was even told I couldn't make it into heaven if I smoked. So after 13 years, I woke up one morning and I was free. Not only of smoking, but of almost everything that I'd been trapped in. And I went for 13 years. I went for several years without drinking or smoking or, doing anything. And it was wonderful to be free. And today I'm really free. If I want to have a cigar, I can have a cigar. If I want to have a drink, I can have a drink. I can do anything I want to do without a guilty conscience. But I wouldn't let myself get enslaved again by anything.
Yes, that's true.
See, that's the trap. When I first heard preachers say you can't be a good Christian and drink, I went home and emptied my liquor cabinet, poured everything down the sink. The trouble with religion is you quit doing all the things, or a lot of the things you really enjoy doing, yet you still want to do them. That's not freedom. Freedom is to not want to do them. That's freedom. But if you just quit smoking, quit drinking, quit chasing women, quit doing everything because you think you should, yet that the heart hasn't changed, it doesn't help you at all. But see, once you begin to follow that internal guidance system, it's unbelievable. The freedom and the expression and the love that you have. Mike mentioned last night about absolute truth. I love absolute truth, but it can drive you. You can't go up to somebody that's dying of cancer and say, that's not true. That's not real. I was in a church one time, I was telling Dana earlier, I was in a church one time where you couldn't say deviled eggs. Brother, we call them angel eggs. We give the devil no place in our church. But see, religion weaves a web and entraps your mind to where you can't think for yourself. And if you do, your mind will tell you, you better be careful. You know how much deception is in the world? The deception is only in the mind. And your internal guidance system will so free you. But that's very difficult to discover until you somehow are able to overcome your mind giving you all the directions. And realize that your mind is lying to you. And when I sit in the quiet, and I can do that now, I can totally quiet my mind and just sat in the quiet. It's the most peaceful, loving experience. And that's where I get my guidance. I don't get it from a book. Dean said something very interesting on Facebook the other day. And I can't quote him, but it was something like, once he discovered love, he no longer needed the Bible. Now for the religious mind, that's a hard one. But you know what? If you have an intimate relationship, let's say my wife, Carol, we have an intimate relationship. Why would I want to read a book about her? Now, don't misunderstand me. I absolutely love the Bible. I use it all the time. But when you know the author, you don't have to read the book to find out what to do. In fact, if that's where you're looking for your truth, you'll probably miss it. The only truth that will really lift you above the prison of the mind is the truth that you know within your own being. That's the truth that we need. I am so thankful for the love that's been expressed in these days. I am so grateful to know all things are ours. We don't have to plead and beg and cry and insist. We just simply relax, knowing that everything is perfect. Somebody else's world may not be perfect, but yours can be. No matter what you go through, no matter what diagnosis you hear, you can be free and know that all things are for your good. I don't understand it. I don't understand why I lost a leg or why I can't function very well physically. I don't understand that. But I don't give it a thought. Because if I did, I'd probably be miserable. I don't think about it. I don't complain about it. It just is what it is. And that's the only way you can come in to a peaceful, loving, compassionate life, is to just know that you don't have to change anything. You really don't. You can try, but you don't have to change anything. Life just is flowing through you. And you don't have to strive or struggle against anything. The river of life is flowing downstream. A lot of times we try to fight upstream. You just flow. Whatever happens, whatever comes to you, don't fight it, flow with it. And you'll be at peace. I'm going to close, or I'll take up Dana's time, and I don't want to do that. Anyway, So good being here. This has been really good for me and Carol because we usually have to travel a day or two to go to a meeting. Now we got one right here. And I want to thank Mike and Diane. Mike and Diane really put this together. And we so appreciate them for coming to Phoenix and being a part of our lives. Mike and Diane have been a big part of our lives for a few years. People ask Mike, why do you minister with Gary? And people ask me, why do you minister with Mike? Because we love one another. Doesn't, you know, differences, what matters about differences?
Right.
Love is the most important thing in the whole world. And, you know, thank God for that we're able to love regardless. I don't care if I never have anything. Carol and I have been in some of the most uncomfortable places where we didn't even know if we were able to pay our rent every month. We've been there thinking we may have to move to our car next month. Yet, without fail, every time, we weren't in ministry at the time either. Yet every time, it would seem miraculously, the finances would come and we could pay our rent and buy our food. We've been there. We used to save our pennies so we could go to McDonald's and have a hamburger. We wouldn't do that now. But you see, no matter how bad things get, if you have that love, nothing else matters. That's where the peace and the contentment, that's where it comes from. And if you can look at a person that's sick and maybe dying and tell them, you know, that's not really real. I had a friend one time that when the 12 towers, or when the Twin Towers came down, and all those people were killed, they looked at me and said, well, you know, those people weren't real anyway. And I have to say, where's the compassion? Where's the love for the families that lost all those loved ones? You can say it's an illusion all you want to. But what else do you have right now? Without love, you have absolutely nothing. You can have all the truth in the world, but without love, you have nothing.
That's right.
But yet, if you have love, you don't have to know any truth. You don't have to read the Bible. You don't have to go to Sunday school. If you have love, you have everything you need. And you can be a blessing to humanity without any spiritual knowledge at all, if you just love. Anyway, amen. We're going to take a little break.